According to a report of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, in the two big cities of Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City, by the end of 2017, the area of green space is about 2 square meters per person. This figure is equal to 1/10 of the green space of the advanced cities in the world. The reason is because the density of construction is too high with the increase of many apartment buildings. Meanwhile, in the current housing market, modern living space does not only mean the utility, but also in the green living space around the area. Understanding this need, many real estate projects have paid more attention to the development of green space in their limited land. It could be green trees around the city, the courtyards, or even the sky gardens, which are located on the top of the building. Many real estate experts said that the development of green space projects will be a trend in the future as these projects are increasingly serving the needs of the customers as well as the protection of the surrounding environment, moving toward the sustainable development of the real estate market.
Greetings from Vietnam on VTC10 Net Việt. Nowadays, many consumers would like to have some kind of the green space and especially the gardens in their housing projects. So how can the developers meet those criteria to meet the needs of the customers? In today's program, we have a conversation with Mr. Nguyễn Vĩnh, an expert in the field of real estate who has been developing those green space and especially the gardens in many countries around the world. So first of all, thank you for joining our program today. The first question we'd like to ask you is, what could you say about the current housing market in Vietnam nowadays?
I think the current housing market in Vietnam is very resilient. The reason is that Vietnam has a large population, and most of the population is still young. So now is the time that they want to have housing on their own. So as far as the demand for housing is always going to be there. So the question is that whether we have enough of the product to meet their demand at the right price, at the right location for them.
So in order to answer the question in terms of such criteria as the location, price, design, and also the utility, would you say that the current housing projects in Vietnam has met the criteria?
In our determination, still not enough. As you know, both Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi, the city is quite dense. It's congested into a certain district. So therefore, we need to expand further out with infrastructure so that we can make it easier access for the people. And as we move outside of the city center, of course, the land price will come down, and that will reflect in more affordable housing for a bigger market share, rather than right now a lot of projects still near the city center where the land price is high, and therefore it's not affordable for a large segment of the population. So I think the location is one of the key criteria. But in reflection of that is that the younger people are willing to travel farther in order to get a better housing on their own. So they're willing to travel 30 minutes or 45 minutes from their house to the place of work. So I think it's going to eventually balance out as we improve on the infrastructure.
Now the density of buildings increases more and more, and the area of green space is reduced. So what would you say about the ratio of the green space over the total area of urban buildings in Vietnam nowadays?
Well, I think it's several factors. Number one would be the cost of green space. As you know, as you increase green space, you have less developable land, and but land is part of the land cost. It's how you calculate the price you got to sell to the people. So if you have more green space, then the price will be higher. However, as a developer, then you need to become more, you have more innovation in order to create more green space, but without affecting your overall sellable area and therefore keeping the price down.
Would you say that the cost is a kind of a barrier for those developers to introduce those projects with the green space and especially the gardens?
Absolutely. I mean, not only the cost factor, but also the selling factor. You know, if you increase the green space, you lessen your sellable area. You invest more money without any money coming back to you. However, we believe in terms of the value that's you cannot see. You know, the kind of like the invisible, intangible value of a project, whereas you know the consumer, the buyer comes into their house or a place where they live, and they appreciate what we do for them in terms of green space, in terms of livable area, in terms of amenities. You know, instead of having a landscape on ground level, we increase the land space on other level. For example, the Imperia Sky Garden. But I think in order to offset some of these, maybe in the future the government will have some sort of incentive for developers. For example, if they increase their green space more than the allowable land ratio, then perhaps you know they would have a tax incentive or something like that. I think that would encourage more developer to think of putting green space in their development.
Mr. Tam and Mrs. Thurng's family are in need of buying an apartment in central Hanoi. With the financial capacity of the family, they are eager to buy an apartment at 80 square meters at the price of more than 2 billion Vietnam dongs. In addition, there are many criteria that they consider.
Một thì giá nó là một phần, hai là cái tiện ích xung quanh, ba là mình sẽ tìm hiểu nhà thầu. Đấy. Cái vị trí xung quanh và những cái tiện ích sử dụng ở đó có những cái gì, có bao nhiêu tầng trung thương mại, có bao nhiêu tầng hầm và nội khu nó có những cái gì. Đó. Và xung quanh đấy có những cái dịch vụ gì và cư dân nó như thế nào. Và cái không gian xanh ở phía dưới thì mình nghĩ là một số dòng chung cư cấp thì mặc định cái đó là mình sẽ để ý xem nó được chiếm khoảng bao nhiêu %, đúng không? Và cái đối diện hai cái tòa đó là khoảng cách nó là bao nhiêu. Đấy, bởi vì mình là một người cũng xem nhiều chung cư rồi, nên thành ra là mình cũng tương đối ưu tiên về cái đó. Nếu như nó có những cái không gian xanh đó và những cái dịch vụ đó thì mình sẽ lựa chọn.
Gần như là tiêu chí đầu tiên đấy là mình khi tìm một cái khu chung cư thì mình sẽ tìm những cái khu chung cư mà nó có nhiều cây xanh, nhiều tiện ích. Bởi vì giữa cái thành phố ngột ngạt như thế này thì về một cái nhà mình mà khi vào một cái nơi mà có nhiều cây xanh cảm giác nó sẽ thư giãn hơn. Đấy mới là ngôi nhà để đi về.
In the developed countries, the sky gardens are no longer exchanged as was Spiro in Germany, Across in Japan, or Kaiser Roof Garden in California, USA. In Vietnam, to catch up with the desire to live harmonious and close to the nature of the residents, developers of real estate projects are now trying to maximize the area for the green space in the apartment buildings. To have a green space, many project developers have to try in one way or another. Sky Garden is one of the solutions that are chosen by many investors. With the limited land fund, bringing the gardens up high will increase the green space for residents to ensure the aesthetics of the landscape. If these factors are met, the projects will increasingly attract more customers and will lead to sustainable urban development.
Green space and especially gardens is what many customers would like to have in their housing projects. So in your opinion, what are the positive impacts, and if there is any kind of the negative impacts of those gardens?
Well, I think the positive impact is always going to be the location with the surrounding area. So not only the horizontal green space, but also the vertical green space in terms of the balconies where you can have your own little private garden within your apartment. So when we planned this project, we put on this project maybe a small apartment, but you have your own little garden, and then you can go on top, you have a bigger garden, and you know, you go down to the ground level, you have even more garden to walk around. The negative, as we think about it, but I don't think it's a negative.
It is obvious that the green space, especially the sky gardens, are very beneficial to the residents in those housing projects. So what would you say about the government policies? Do you think the government should have more favorable policies for those developers to launch such projects?
If you look back the past few years, the government has done a lot in terms of improving the regulation, make it easier for the consumer to look at project, to buy project, make it easier for developer to develop project in terms of approvals. I think the next step would be looking into various different incentives so that the developer, in order to offset some of the land use right certificate fee, that they would be encouraged to increase their green space, perhaps some tax incentive, or perhaps some the lower of the land use fee, and of course, you know, we always try to improve on the product or on the quality of living for the people. So I think eventually we will get there. I think you can't just use one project and then take that and say, hey, you have to do like this project. I think it's going to take a little bit more time, a lot of the feedback from both the consumer and the developer, for the government then have enough information to decide whether this is worthwhile to provide an incentive.
And finally, what would you say about the trend of developing the green space, especially gardens in those housing projects in the future?
So we discussed earlier about location being one of the key points for the buyer or the consumer to select their housing. But in addition to that, we put a sky garden on top. Normally on other projects you would see that they would do like a commercial area, a bar or restaurant, or with a view to the city. That would be a very big commercial area. However, we eliminate all that, and we develop it as a sky garden. So therefore that we increase the total green area of the whole project up to almost over 80% of the total land area if you look down from the top. So that's one of the things that we find from our buyers. So we are very proud of this project.
Now, with many projects that have not met the criteria of the consumers in terms of the green space, so would MIK intend to buy those projects to introduce the green criteria into those projects and to meet the needs of the consumers?
Well, I think as a developer, real estate developer in Vietnam, we're always looking for new projects in order to expand our residential portfolio. MIK is looking at projects in Hanoi, in Ho Chi Minh City, and other parts of the country. So definitely, if there are projects, we will certainly look at it.
So once again, thank you for joining us and for your sharings today. And that's all we have for this episode of Shine Vietnam today. For comment and feedback, don't hesitate to write to us at shinevietnam@netvietv.net. Thank you for watching and goodbye for now.